2000, we're at Marsh Point, just coming up on Cape John. We've been flying at about 300 to 400 feet at about 70 miles per hour. And as you can see, the shoreline along here is, although the sun angle is not very good, you can see there's mostly bedrock, low-tide platforms, and then sand beach in between the rock outcrop. And behind there's a cliff that varies from 5 meters to probably close to 15. And it's mostly bedrock, but it varies with how much glacial materials over top. Our time right now is 18:11. We're just beyond low tide. We're just coming up on Cape John, one of our coastal recession cliff sites. It's about a 13-meter cliff, and it's lost about 2.5 meters at the top since 1986 to 1996, which is only about an erosion rate of 0.1 to 0.2 meters per year. That's a superb view of Cape John. Our measurements are from fence posts at the end of the cape. You can see how it's dominated by the bedrock outcrops on either side of the cape, and then as you go farther along shore, you can also see other bedrock outcrops extending out from the cliff line, which dominate this shore. Our other part of our cliff recession stakes are just near these houses coming into view now. Traveling around the little wharf at Cape John. You can see they've added a new break wall on the outer part of the wharf. You can see the fishing fleet in behind. The inner shore behind it is extensive sand flats. There's some bedrock outcrops offshore, and sill cliff in the back shore. The intertidal is more of a mixed sediment, much better lighting this way. Coming up to Archibald's Point. It's controlled by rock outcrop. Extensive flats in behind, and again we're going by the back side of the pond that is closed off by the road. We haven't quite got up to it yet. There you just see now where the road is closed off that pond, and then there's another pond right after it, just now, which is also closed off by the road. This is fairly prime cottage country. You see there's cottages one after another. Some places there's bedrock in front, other places nice sand beach. Substantial cliff, probably about 8 meters high. Along the inner part of John Bay, there's extensive low-tide flats with fuchsias on the rocks, low-tide platform. The intertidal varies from sand, you see here, to cobble boulder, and there's several places where artificial riprap has been added in. As you come up to River John, there's an extensive ridge and runnel intertidal flats. They're not quite into view yet, but they'll be coming into view in a minute. I think you can see them now. and there's some riprap and seawall in behind them. And then the beach itself looks somewhat degraded at the proximal end. It almost looks like there's an eroded dune scarp. And then at the fall, at the distal end, there's some recurved ridges. We're just following sort of the outer edge of the sand flats into River John. We'll go down to the bridge and then come back out. The River John, you've got extensive mudflats, wetland vegetation. There's the mouth of the river that comes and joins into John Bay in Northumberland Strait. We'll go down to the road, the bridge that cuts across it. And you can see there's a fair bit of marsh on both the seaward and landward side of the bridge. In terms of oil spills, this area would be a good one to try and avoid getting oil in this area. There he's getting a good view of the marsh just beyond the road. And we'll just circle around. We'll just circle around and go back out again. A good view of the bridge at River John, downtown, and the marsh on either side. River John was settled in 1785, I believe, so it's another very old settlement. Just another piece of trivia for you. As you head out into the main part of the bay again, you've got extensive tidal flats, look like mud flats in front of the church there. Some boulder, and there's a small sand beach that is flanking that extends along this point. Farther out, you get into more marsh development again behind a fairly small sand beach. Some clumps of grass along the beach. I thought they were boulders at first. Must be seaweed. Got a little bit of a lighting problem right now. It's a little dark, but the bluff and the back shore is 1 to 3 meters high and partially vegetated. There's some seawalls in front of the houses. Intertidal is extensive sand flats, or mud flats probably more likely, exposed at low tide. Coming up on Long Point. Our time is 18:20. On this section of coast, you can see the fuchsias growing on the rocks. There's a lot of lower intertidal is rocky. There's sand caught between them and mud flats. And then the upper beach varies anywhere from bedrock to cribwork to backshore being erosional cliff. See the old isolated sand ridge just offshore. Imagine the people are waiting for it to come back. Just coming into Brule Harbor. Brule Harbor is a very popular cottage spot, nice wide sand beach with ridge and runnel topography. We're at Murray Beach, very popular cottage area. You can see there's intermittent sand deposits offshore and a lot of riprap protecting the scarp in the backshore. There's a permanent outlet, looks like a walkway across it in the Brule Park area. And it's mostly all sand beach. There's multiple dune ridges. There's a park facility in the back, boardwalks. And there's quite an extensive sand flat all in front of this part of the coastline. At the eastern end of Murray Beach, you can see the sand deposits are less continuous and there's more shore protection structures in front of the cottages. Again, ridge and runnel sort of topography in the intertidal. Wider sand beach just at this location. It's gone by another marsh. It's almost closed off by a beach, but it's open today. Then back into a low cliff. Looks like at least half plates of deposits over bedrock. And very coarse substrate on the beach. Again, a whole series of cottages all along the shore. Much of the back shore has been reinforced artificially. A few people still have some dune growth, a nice sand beach in front of it. Other people have seaweed in front of it, and then there's extensive sandbar extending along parts of the coastline, and it sits just offshore. This area here is known as Brule or Brule Corner. There's a lot of cottage development. There's one section just you're seeing here that has fewer cottages, wider intertidal with more rock outcrop and less sand. The erosional scarp in the background. Just coming up to an old abandoned wharf or groin. Used to extend off the campground here. It's held this foreland in place. It's mostly sand, multiple dune ridges, extensive sand flat. Backshore is artificially built up. A lot of riprap, groins, seawalls, you name it, just about everything along it. There's extensive lower intertidal with the sand beach at the top that appears to have a slight erosional scarp. I'm not sure whether that's mud, it's eroded, or sand. But there's a sharp break and slope just at the, well, it must be close to mid sea level. Cutting around the head of Brule Harbor, heading towards Ferguson's Cove. Again, the lighting's not great, but what we've got are extensive shoals. Extensive low tide flats. A lot of birds in the area, I think, and it's very shallow just offshore. In the backside, we've got some dune grass, but mostly wetland. And we're just going across Ferguson's Cove now to a looks like a golf course. Must be the Brule Point Golf Course. And in front of that, mostly vegetated shore, low gradient. There's some mixed sediment in the intertidal. Some boulder, and there's a 1 to 2 meter scarp all along the edge of the green. Heck of a water trap if you go off into the Northumberland Strait. Following along the east side of Brule Point, you can see some people have actually armored a lot of the shoreline for the protector field. It's not often you see that where a field is being protected. Other people have a concrete or wooden seawall and a riprap all along this section. And then as we come out to Weatherby's Spit and go around Brule Point, you can see that there's a progradational or building deposit of sand coming off the end of the point and accumulating in the shelter of Brule Point. We're up around the 1826 is our time, and we're flying at 360 feet. We're going about 90 miles per hour. It's coming around the point. It's called Weatherby's. And you can see the scarp is anywhere from less than a meter to probably 6 or 7 meters. An extensive low tide platform, all rock with the intermittent sand beach. There's a fellow who's armored his cottage, and he's now an island almost. Along the whole of outer Brule Point, it's the scarp, erosional cliff, both placed on bedrock platform. Extended a long ways offshore, several hundred meters, and particularly at the point at Jollymore Reef, very wide, extensive platform of probably sandstone. And the near shore, or the intertidal zone is a coarse substrate, and the scarp varies from less than probably a meter all the way up to a much higher level. We're just going around Jollymore Reef now. Quite a few seabirds just off the reef. And being 1820, we're on a rising tide, but it's still pretty low. You can see the extensive low tide flats. The bedrock's now, of course, oblique to the coast, and it's trapping some sediment between it, like a natural groin. The cliffs that you come into Bearshwa Harbor, a decrease in height substantially. There's cottages all along the top of it. Some of them have artificial riprap and wood, but most don't have anything. There are sand bars, intermittent ones, just offshore of these cottages. Nice sand beach though, fairly steep. And then there's a cobble and a boulder in between the sand ridges, which makes it very irregular. These cottages here, you can see there's more riprap in front of them. Most of them are boulder. The intertidal is mixed cobble, boulder, and sand. And there's a whole series of groins here. Now, I don't know, they look maybe not natural, although there is bedrock and boulder in the area. It could be natural. There is sand farther offshore, but the beach itself is sort of devoid of sand in this area. Until you get farther up into Bearshwa Harbor towards the river mouth, and then you get a little bit more of a sand beach, a sand flat or mud flat offshore. We're just coming up to Waldegrave. Well, it's actually called Narrows, which leads into Waldegrave. On the east side of the Narrows, there's quite an extensive sand flat. A bit more of a better developed beach just at the entranceway of the Narrows. And as we swing around the next peninsula, following the western shore of Bereshaw Harbor at Sandy Point, you can see a wider intertidal, poor beach development, and an erosional scarp in the background. There's extensive low gradient sand flat with some vegetation. Looks like wetland vegetation, some marsh vegetation. At the shoreline or upper intertidal, there's some dune grass. As you swing over towards the end of the point, I think it's called Chambers Point, you start to pick up more bedrock again. There's a small island there with actually a flanking spit with dune grass on it, and there's sand developing or building on the distal end. At Chambers Point, as we go around it, you'll see more bedrock in the near shore. More seaweed attached to the rocks in the near shore. And then the actual point itself is a mixed sand, pebble, cobble, boulder. And the bank behind it is glacial material. On this side of the sand point, you can see the bedrock is controlling a lot of the morphology. There is more sand at Sand Point, but it's mostly bedrock controlled. Very thin deposits. And the big deposit is actually farther inshore, and we'll be coming up to that in a short while. Our time is 1834, and we're at 450 feet going at about 90 miles per hour. Here you can see a nice more sand deposit on this beach, bit of dune developed in the back shore. And then you go into Marsh and behind it, some cottages. And then we're just coming up on the proximal end of this larger sand deposit that extends into Tettamagouche Bay. This marsh is not closed off, it's still open. And then as we get to this spit, flanking spit, you can see that it's closed off at the proximal end, and at the distal end there's a series of recurved spits. Coming around with only some washover in some areas and some vegetation in others. So it appears to be breaking up, although there's more sediment accumulation at the far end. Coming into the river mouth of Tettamagouche towards William Point, and there's extensive shoals in the river mouth. The main channel is on the far side that you're looking at right now. The scarp is bedrock. It appears in the back shore, 5 to maybe 12 meters high. Low intertidal is mixed sediment, low gradient. And then there's extensive marsh behind this island. It's just coming up now. It seems to be bedrock controlled, although it may only be glacial deposits that are eroding. We'll go down. We're just approaching the town of Tatamagouche right now. You can't see, you'll see it on the way out. But the river meanders out through here. We'll be going over or by a railway bridge and the road, the main road in Tatamagouche. The shoreline is vegetated mostly. There's a bit of scarp in places, but mostly wetland vegetation, marsh, and then in this headland coming into point now is more bedrock and glacial material. This is a very extensive marsh deposit at the sort of the bend, and large bend in the river near Tatamagouche, and we're just going to circle around at the end here and head back out of the river. There you get a view of Tatamagouche itself. And the river channel and the wetland vegetation in the middle of the channel. On the far side there's a bit of a scarp. It's treed. It again appears to be mainly bedrock and glacial deposits. As you come out past the bridge and the railway bridge, you're back into wetland vegetation again. But now you're getting a good view of Tatamagouche. Traveling seaward past Tatamagouche, we can see the river channel below us. It follows the western shore. The shore itself is an erosional bank, maybe a bit of coarse material at the base of it, very little beach development. And just offshore below us, you can see the wide, extensive intertidal flats, some vegetation cover. And we're approaching the outlet to the French River. The shoreline is mostly banked as we approach it, and there's a bridge going across the outlet to the river. Off the outlet, there's extensive intertidal flats, considerable wetland and or marsh vegetation, and the upper beach has very little beach features. It's more vegetated or lag deposits. Leaving Tatamagouche, heading towards William Point. Start to pick up a bit more beach now. The flats are still very extensive in the low tide. There's some marsh in behind the sand beach. Coming around Tatamagouche Blockhouse Point, which is where the Tim Horton camp is. We're going to stop for fuel. The front of Tim Hortons camp has a fairly large concrete structure in front of it. And then there's a large marina beside that, which is all artificial. And then as we go around the point, there's really not much beach to speak of in this area. A little bit of bedrock platform. And you see the sewage treatment plant in the back.